Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going behind the scenes, of the algorithms that are shaping your online world. We're talking about something called Generative Recommenders, a new kind of AI being used by, internet giants, really.
These are the systems, that decide what you see in your newsfeed, what products you're shown, even what videos pop up in your recommendations.
Yeah, and we dug into a research paper all about generative recommenders, and let me tell you, this isn't just some, sci-fi concept. It's already affecting what billions of users see online every day, likely including you.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is how these new systems are different from the older recommendation models, the ones we call deep learning recommendation models, or DLRMs for short.
Okay, so DLRMs, these were kind of like the first generation of AI recommendations.
Exactly. You can think of DLRMs as massive spreadsheets, crunching tons of data points about you. They look at what you liked, what you click, even your demographics, trying to fit you into a category.
And I bet that's why sometimes the recommendations felt a bit off. Like, they didn't quite get me. Like, sure, I like documentaries, but why are you showing me one about 18th century basket weaving?
Yeah, that's the limitation of DLRMs. They were trying to match you to content based on broad categories, not truly understanding the nuances of your individual preferences.
So how are these generative recommenders, or GRs, any different? Is it just that they have more data to work with?
It's more than just the amount of data. It's how they use it. GRs look at your online actions as the kind of language, a sequence of events that tells a story about your interests and motivations.
Okay, so instead of seeing me as documentary lover in a spreadsheet, they're looking at the actual timeline of my actions. Watched a documentary about space, then clicked on an article about the Mars rover, then spent 10 minutes reading about Elon Musk.
Exactly. They see each action, a click, a like, a video you watch, as a word in a sentence. And they're trying to understand the grammar of your unique sentence, the flow of your interests.
That's pretty amazing. But what do they actually do with that understanding? How does that translate into better recommendations?
GRs shift from simply matching content to actually predicting your next move. Imagine scrolling through your feed. Instead of just showing you more of what you've liked in the past, GRs aim to anticipate what will truly capture your attention right now based on the entire context of your previous actions.
So it's not just because you watched a space documentary, here are 10 more space documentaries. It's more like, because you've shown an interest in space exploration, technology, and ambitious individuals, maybe you'd also find this article about the future of asteroid mining fascinating.
Precisely. And these GRs are working with models that are absolutely massive, contain trillions of parameters. That's orders of magnitude larger than anything we've seen before in recommendation systems.
Trillions. Okay, that is officially mind-blowing, but hold on. If they're analyzing every tiny action of billions of users, that must be a crazy amount of data to process. How do they do it?
That brings us to one of the key innovations of GRs, the way they simplify and process this massive stream of user actions. Instead of looking at all those separate data points like DLRMs, did they turn everything into that unified timeline of actions, your personal sentence?
So it's like they're taking all those messy data points and weaving them into a cohesive narrative of your online behavior. Does this paper actually explain how they do that, technically speaking?
It does. They go into detail about how they handle all sorts of data, from categorical information like the topics you follow to numerical data like how much time you spend reading certain articles.
Wow, it's incredible how they managed to turn all that complexity into a single streamlined timeline. But what happens next? How do they use this action sentence to actually generate recommendations?
That's where things get even more fascinating. And that's what we'll dive into in part 2 of this deep dive. We'll talk about the powerful algorithms that analyze these action sentences, how they make predictions, and what that means for your online experience.
All right, listeners, stay tuned because we're just scratching the surface of this incredible technology. We'll be back after a quick break to unravel the inner workings of generative recommenders and explore what they might mean for the future of the internet. Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were talking about how these new AI systems called generative recommenders are turning our online actions into a unique language they can understand.
That's right. And now we're going to explore how that language is actually processed and what it means for the recommendations you see.
I'm ready to dive deeper. So we've got these massive action sentences representing each user's online behavior. What happens next? How does the AI turn that into something useful?
Well, the goal here is prediction. GR's designed to not just match you with content based on your past, but to actually anticipate what you'll want to see next. And to do that, they rely on some incredibly sophisticated algorithms.
Okay, I'm all ears. Can you give us a glimpse into how these algorithms work their magic? What's going on under the hood?
One of the key players here is something called the Hierarchical Sequential Transduction Unit, or HSTU. Think of it as the brain of the generative recommender, specifically designed to handle those long, complex action sentences we talked about.
HSTU. So is this like a supercharged version of those transformers we hear about powering things like ChatGPT?
You're on the right track. It's based on the same transformer architecture. But HSTU is optimized to deal with the unique characteristics of recommendation data. And it's incredibly fast, which is crucial when you're dealing with real-time recommendations.
Hold on, real time. You mean as I'm scrolling through my feed, this HSTU thing is constantly analyzing my actions and updating the recommendations?
Exactly. That's what makes GRs so powerful. They're not just working with a static snapshot of your past behavior. They're dynamically adapting to your actions as they happen.
So every click, every minute I spend reading an article, it's all feeding into this HSTU engine, which is then refining its predictions about what I'll find interesting next.
Precisely. It's constantly learning and evolving its understanding of you.
Okay, that is officially mind-blowing. But here's something I'm curious about. My online activity isn't constant. There are long stretches where I'm not doing anything. So most of my action sentence is actually empty space. Does that mess things up?
It's a great question, and it highlights another clever aspect of GRs. They're designed to handle what we call sparsity in the data. Think about it. You're not constantly engaging with content. There are gaps in your activity.
Definitely. Some days my action sentence might be more like a haiku than a novel.
Exactly. And the HSTU is built to be efficient at dealing with that sparsity. It's like a detective who can solve the case with just a few key clues.
So even with all that empty space, it can still make accurate predictions about my interests.
Yes, and they even have an algorithm called stochastic length, or SL, which intentionally increases that sparsity during training.
Wait, intentionally making it harder? That sounds counterintuitive. Why would they do that?
It's a bit like training an athlete with added weights. By making the training process more challenging, by introducing more sparsity, they actually make the model more robust and efficient in the long run.
So they're basically pushing the algorithm to become a better detective, forcing it to make accurate predictions even with limited information. That's pretty ingenious. But here's another challenge I'm thinking about. Platforms have millions, even billions of pieces of content. How do these GRs actually decide which ones to show me?
That's the ranking problem, and it's a big one. You're right, they can't just show you everything. They need a way to quickly evaluate a massive number of options and pick the best ones for you.
So it's not just about understanding me, it's also about understanding the vast sea of content out there and how it all connects to my individual preferences.
Exactly. And for that, they use an algorithm called mFalcon. Think of it as a super efficient sorting system. It allows the GR to simultaneously evaluate hundreds of potential recommendations using the same amount of computing power.
Okay, so it's like having a team of expert matchmakers working in parallel, each one presenting their top picks, and then the GR decides which one is the perfect fit.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And the result is that you get a more personalized feed faster, even as the pool of potential content keeps growing.
This is all incredibly impressive. We've gone from turning our actions into a language to having these super fast algorithms analyzing and ranking millions of possibilities in real time. But where does it all lead? What's the big picture here?
That's what we'll explore in the final part of this deep dive. We'll talk about the potential of these generative recommenders, how they might change our online experience, and what it all means for the future of the internet.
All right, listeners, we'll be back after a short break to delve into the future of recommendations and explore the implications of this groundbreaking technology. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent this episode exploring generative recommenders, these powerful AI systems that are, kind of changing the way we experience the internet.
Yeah, we've talked about how they analyze our online actions, like a language, how they use super fast algorithms to make predictions, and how they can sort through millions of options to find, the perfect recommendations for each of us.
It's been a wild ride, and I'm honestly still wrapping my head around it all. But now I'm wondering, where do we go from here? What does the future hold for these GRs?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the research paper we've been discussing offers some intriguing clues. One of the most exciting findings is something they call the scaling law.
Scaling law? What does that mean exactly?
Traditionally, when you build an AI model, you hit a performance limit. You feed it more data, you give it more computing power, but at some point, the improvements plateau. It's like hitting a wall.
So like a car that can only go so fast no matter how much you push the gas pedal.
A perfect analogy. But here's the thing. GRs don't seem to have that limit. They keep getting better as they scale up. The more data they have, the more computing power you give them, the more accurate and sophisticated they become.
So there's no ceiling in sight. That's pretty remarkable. But what does that mean in practice? How will this scaling power change the way GRs work in the future?
Well, imagine a world where your recommendations are so finely tuned to your interests that they feel almost telepathic. They not only anticipate what you'll enjoy, but they also introduce you to new ideas and experiences you never even knew existed, all tailored to your unique tastes.
That sounds amazing. It's like having a personal AI curator guiding you through the endless sea of content online. But it also raises some interesting questions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. As these GRs become more powerful, we need to think carefully about their impact on our online experience. For example, how do we ensure that they don't create filter bubbles where we're only exposed to information that reinforces our existing beliefs?
That's a really important point. We don't want to end up in a world where everyone is living in their own echo chamber, completely isolated from different perspectives.
Exactly. And there's also the question of control. As these systems become more sophisticated, will users feel like they're still in the driver's seat, or will they feel like they're being steered by an algorithm they don't fully understand?
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? We want the benefits of personalization, but we also want to maintain our autonomy and make sure we're not being manipulated.
And that's why it's so crucial to have open conversations about these technologies, to explore both their potential and their limitations. We need to be informed participants in shaping the future of the internet, not passive consumers.
I couldn't agree more. This research into generative recommenders has opened my eyes to a whole new world of possibilities, but it's also highlighted the importance of being aware, engaged, and thoughtful about how these technologies are developed and deployed.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I hope you, our listener, feel similarly inspired to continue exploring and questioning. The future of the internet is being shaped right now, and it's up to all of us to ensure that it's a future that benefits everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of AI. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.